Next on Investigative Report. Dying to be happy. The explosion of fentanyl in America. Today, America is witnessing a disturbing trend amongst its youth in which 80% of all drug overdoses originate from the illegal use of fentanyl. The street-grade fentanyl market produces a synthetic opioid that is 50 to 100 times stronger than morphine, making it highly addictive. The legal forerunner of fentanyl was a pharmaceutical version developed for the pain management treatment of cancer patients and applied in a patch to the skin, but in the pill form. Fentanyl goes to the bloodstream much quicker, allowing young teens to chase the highs that their grandparents did in the 60s. Depressed teens are desperately seeking its feel-good effects to mediate the emotional pain they are feeling, or escapism from life in general. But in chasing every dragon, there is a side effect of being burnt. Burnt in that fentanyl produces lethal side effects such as low heart rate and respiratory depression, which Narcan is needed to save one's life. And now, dying to be happy. The explosion of fentanyl in America. On June 16, 2022, fentanyl will claim the life of childhood star Tyler Sanders 4 months after his 18th birthday. Fans might remember Tyler from such roles as 911 Lone Star, The Reliant, The Rookie, and Amazon's Just Magic. On that fate-filled day, Tyler put a face to more than 1 million people who have died from a drug overdose in America over the last 2 decades. The drug addictive fentanyl is imported by air, land, and sea into the United States from 3 different foreign countries. Up until recently, China was the main source of fentanyl in America before India perfected its pill mill processes. And just recently, our closest neighbor to the south, Mexico, has become India's chief manufacturing competitor, making fentanyl the single deadliest drug threat our nation has ever encountered. Whether it be the United States unloading docks or anywhere else in the world, fentanyl has been invited into where drug use, addiction, overdose, and death have been normalized. Once foreign shipping containers have been offloaded into Mexican ports and smugglers are able to get small quantities of the drug through Mexico's physical border, only time and distance remain between addicted customers and death. For the entire year 2022, 28,765 pounds of fentanyl were seized by law enforcement at the border, with an estimated street value of more than $230 million. According to the DA's own estimates, it is believed that these seizures saved potentially hundreds of millions of lives. Hopefully saving the lives of children who didn't even know their lives were at risk to start with. Did you know that between the years 2019 and 2021, synthetic opioid fatalities led to children under 14 years of age dying of fentanyl poisoning at a rate faster than any other age group in the United States today? During that same time, infants dying of fentanyl poisoning increased by twice as much, if you could imagine. Fentanyl deaths among toddlers between the ages of 1 and 4 more than tripled, and deaths among children between the ages of 5 and 14 nearly quadrupled. So this investigative report is talking about children between 1 and 18. And why is fentanyl so deadly a drug? Simply put, 2 milligrams of fentanyl, which is equivalent to the smallest pinch of salt beside this penny, is enough to kill you. The lethal potency of fentanyl in its purest form, or laced to mimic pharmaceuticals, is what is increasing the death rate in America today. So you have drug dealers mimicking other drugs as well as Smarties candy and multicolor to fool children into taking this drug. Then the danger comes in what fentanyl does to the brain during an overdose. A fentanyl overdose induces respiratory depression that can lead to anoxic or hypoxic brain injury. Those two different injuries. Now, anoxic brain injuries are caused by a complete lack of oxygen to the brain, which results in the death of brain cells after approximately 4 minutes of oxygen deprivation. So you have 4 minutes to save somebody's life after ingesting and getting this drug into their system where they have an overdose. Now, hypoxic brain injuries are brain injuries that form due to restrictions on the oxygen being supplied to the brain. The restricted flow of oxygen causes the gradual death and impairment of brain cells. So you die over a period of time and you can witness this, but you can do nothing about it. Now, additionally, a fentanyl overdose can cause the body to go into a coma. This is evidenced by the body experiencing CNS depression, which can result in decreased rates of breathing, decreased heart rate, and loss of consciousness, possibly leading to a coma or death. In a lot of the cases where they find the people dead and the children, this is what happens. In other words, an overdose causes the body to forget to breathe on its own. And if you watch the fentanyl cases, the person is conscious of themselves dying and they cannot breathe. Now, if you see someone experiencing these following signs, they may be going through a fentanyl overdose. So take these down, and in the future, this is what to look for. Slurred speech, poor concentration, confusion, headache, lightheadedness, dizziness, dry mouth, and problems with movement and memory, especially if it appears that they cannot breathe on their own. So you notice all these 8 symptoms around at once. So when you come upon that person, this is an excellent time to administer naloxone. Now, naloxone, or what you know as Narcan, which is a nasal spray, is to be given right away and does not take the place of emergency medical care.
You're watching MNN, the Men's Channel.
So what you want to do after that is get emergency medical help right away after getting the first dose of Narcan, even if the person wakes up. So wait about 3 minutes for naloxone to take effect. If the person has not responded, after the 3 minutes, give a second dose. Now stay with the person until help arrives. Now naloxone works to reverse this particular type of opioid overdose in the body for only 30 to 90 minutes. But many opioids remain in the body longer, and that's the problem. So because of this, it is possible for a person to still be experiencing the effects of an overdose after a dose of this particular remedy. So even after this wears off, so in a lot of cases you'll see the person being given this particular drug, Narcan, or its other name, once, twice, or 3 times. Now today, police officers, firefighters, colleges, and regular schools are stocking this life-saving tool in vending machines for free to save lives so that many people don't have to become part of the staggering death toll. You see, in just 2 years, we have lost more people to fentanyl poisoning than we have troops in both the Afghanistan and Iraq wars combined, if you can believe. Now, the Center for Disease Control reports that more than 100,000 people have died of drug overdose in the year 2021, and more than 65% of those deaths were linked to fentanyl alone. In 2021, fentanyl and its analogs accounted for 71,238 overdose deaths in the United States. Why? Because fentanyl is cheap, potent, and profitable. So dealers use it to make fake pills, which have been found in all 50 states. It would seem that we are importing a drug more deadly than any chemical weapon that has been used to date on battlefields across the entire globe, as evidenced by these 2 news stories that we're about to present to you. And in these stories, I may caution you, people are going to be passed out and they'll need this life-saving drug.
Shocking body cam video released tonight by the San Diego Sheriff's Department. It shows a deputy On the brink of death after being exposed to fentanyl, the deputy saved by his partner who was equipped with the life-saving medicine known as Narcan. We do want to warn you, what you're about to see is difficult to watch.
I'm not going to let you die. I need Narcan! I got you.
Dramatic body cam video capturing the moment Corporal Scott Crane of the San Diego County Sheriff's Department is promising his trainee, Deputy David Five-Eye, he's not going to let him die after Five-Eye was exposed to fentanyl while processing drugs at the scene of an arrest in early July. That discovery caught on Five-Eye's own body cam just minutes earlier.
Yeah, it's a powder.
Could be cocaine or fentanyl. It tested positive for fentanyl.
The synthetic opioid is 50 times more potent than heroin, and exposure to just a few small grains can have deadly consequences. In Five-Eye's case, the exposure and his reaction to it was almost instant.
A couple seconds later, he took some steps back and he collapsed. I ran over to him and I grabbed him and he was ODing.
Corporal Crane was equipped with the nasal spray Narcan, a prescription medicine that rapidly reverses the effects of an overdose. Still, Five-Eye needed more. Here he is, in his own words, still emotional.
My lungs just locked up. I couldn't breathe. I was trying to gasp for breath, but I couldn't breathe at all.
Five-Eye, you okay? Talk to me. Oh, no. Don't be sorry. You're okay. Don't be sorry. There's nothing to be sorry about. I got you, okay? I'm not going to let you die.
Deputy Five-Eye taken by ambulance, overdosing again and again on his way to the hospital. But without his partner and that Narcan, he knows he would have been just another statistic in this country's deadly drug overdose epidemic.
I'm Deputy David Five-Eye, and I almost died of fentanyl overdose.
Over the last year, fentanyl deaths in California have spiked almost 46%. According to the San Diego Sheriff's Department, deputies in San Diego were in fact the very first in this state to begin carrying the Narcan.
911, what do you need, please? Fire or medical?
I have 3 people that are, apparently they seem to be passed out drunk, not waking up in my parking lot. Like 2 of them are on the ground.
11:30 on a Saturday night. Deputies are called to help 2 men and a woman, all unresponsive.
When I pulled into the gas station, it's very well lit. You could tell right away that there was something different about this one.
Yo, bro, wake up. You're smacking at them, you're screaming, you're shaking stuff around, moving things, and they're not doing anything.
In the back of your mind, you're like, well, what is this? What else is going on?
At this gas station on Red Bug Lake Road,
Hey!
the normal measures deputies take to wake people up aren't working.
Now at this time, we're realizing we have probably an overdose, a triple overdose at that.
And I've never responded to one where there's 3 people and they're laid out completely unresponsive, turning blue, the colors leaving their faces. It's scary.
Got 3 Narcan deployments.
Since November 2016, each SCSO deputy has carried with them Narcan, a powerful opioid inhibitor sprayed up the nostril that has brought dozens of people who are overdosing back from the brink of dying.
Typically, when we administer the Narcan, you get that deep breath. You see the results right away, but that didn't happen this time. All 3 of them had 1 dose of Narcan originally. It still wasn't enough. You know, they needed more treatment.
Come on, bud. Come on. There you go. Wake up. Wake up.
Seminole County fire personnel arrived with more Narcan. Each person ended up needing multiple doses.
Anything else in the car, LT?
And now the deputies have custody of this pickup. They have to determine what caused all this.
After these subjects are transported to the hospital, we're still left with the vehicle. And that possibly hazardous material that's inside. We don't know what it is or where it is.
I was nervous. I will say that.
To protect her from coming into contact with this dangerous substance, Deputy Caitlin Henry put on protective gloves and a gas mask.
There were 2 people standing by that could take care of me if something were to happen.
And finally, Henry discovers this small baggie. She later asked the female who overdosed what it was.
Then I said, can you be candid with me? What did you think you were taking? And her reply was, oh, I thought I was doing cocaine. And she's like, but that's not cocaine.
In reality, the drugs the trio were taking here that night were laced with fentanyl, a synthetic dealers use to make their drug supply last longer and more profitable.
Society chooses to look at these overdose rates and fatality statistics as just the signs and symptoms of drug abusers. But behind every drug abuser, you can typically find someone who is not happy with themselves. That's what it always comes down to. It's inner pain. Now, even people that use drugs refer to experiencing as getting high, meaning that they are coming from a low place before taking those illicit drugs. So remember, getting high is opposite of low. I believe that between the age of peer pressure, when you first start school, and the final day we close our eyes in old age, we are bombarded by pressure to be somebody that we are not, to go in a direction that we do not wish to grow, and to adapt to other people's wills that leave us empty and completely hollow inside. So these things tug against an average person and you feel depressed. And so they seek to find happiness from something other than themselves. So in the midst of these pressures, you will find people who chase happiness to cope for the year, the month, the day, and some for the hour. Where some people can get by with an addiction to sweets or alcohol to dull the pain or inner turmoil, others may reach for a higher plane for pleasure. So that's why it's not my job to judge people because they are addicted to drugs. Some people are addicted to soda, chocolate cake, whatever you may have. Now, drugs like fentanyl, just like your favorite chocolate cake, make a strong impression on your body pleasure center, so you can repeat that process over and over again. But most of us do not have to enter treatment centers for chocolate cake like those who do for illegal drugs. We don't have to do it. And even if we did, you wouldn't go. Because people try to keep what they find an addiction to a secret. And similarly, people do not like to enter treatment centers for drugs any more than they would for their favorite vice, like I just explained to you. Now, if we are hard to help at all, someone who is losing the battle of inner turmoil, we must seek what is making them unhappy, as opposed to seeing them now through the lens of a junkie. If you look at somebody as just a junkie, then you pity them. They're not somebody to help. They're somebody who did it to themselves. Now, I know that when I used to help people cope with where they came from, because most people have problems with the past more than the future, I would always ask them what was their favorite thing they liked to do as a child. What did you like to do as a child? What did you get off on? What did you enjoy? Now, usually after they revealed that thing to me, I would always ask them if they still did that today. And I must tell you, without exception, all of them would say that they stopped doing what brought them pleasure. Now, we do jobs and other experiences that continue to bring us pain, but we stop what brings us pleasure. Now, the interesting thing here is that we may stop having fun in our lives, but this will not stop the mind from seeking fun. You see, our brains are in a constant search for dopamine release, be it natural or artificial. So when you have fun and you do exercise, it's a natural. Drugs are artificial. So if we choose to stop living, which shuts off the natural release of dopamine and endorphins, the body will seek it through artificial means or whatever is your weakness. Most people have addictions. The addiction is to the weakness that they cannot get over, not a weakness you might be able to get over because you're their friend. So as I said before, for some it may be that cake that leads to obesity, that beer that leads to alcoholism, or that first gateway drug that leads to fentanyl poisoning. Drugs are the body's only way to get dopamine release from a body that refuses to stay in motion and a state of natural happiness. So even when people are trying to get off drugs, they try to get them into exercise. They try to get them doing something other than what they've been doing. So if we choose to couch surf or quit out on the activities that made us happiest in our youth, even while we are still youthful, just like the children, then until we take charge of the addiction to happiness instead of true happiness is all that matters. On August 21st, 2022, the Drug Enforcement Agency observed National Fentanyl Awareness and Prevention Day. A special exhibit was created that Faces of Fentanyl, that's what they call it, the Faces of Fentanyl. And those were made to commemorate the lives lost from fentanyl at its headquarters near Washington, D.C. And anytime you have somebody in your family that went through this fentanyl poisoning and has passed, you can email them a picture of your loved one and they will post it on the wall. For Investigative Report, this is Charles Rivers. Thank you for watching.